important for
Tell
us.
me something about what Breton wrote that was important to you as an artist in terms of this.
I mean that art was something that was born in the unconscious, and Breton was very interested in Jung, for instance.
Why did that touch you or other Latin Americans?
Because we have this hope that inside of us there is everything. What we should take out was that was inside, not that was outside. I mean, not to copy the Europeans, as a lot of Argentinians and Brazilians from the Atlantic coast did, but to use that, the discoveries of modern art, to express ourselves, to express our difference, no?
Well, let me ask a question with regard to surrealism. I understand what you're saying about the way in which Breton's fascination with Jung and the unconscious dealt with the experience of universal man, and that was empowering because it went beyond issues of nationality and regional culture to something more fundamental. My question with regard to surrealism in the surrealist fascination with the unconscious, Jung, the unconscious that you talked about, this being so much a part of Breton's writing. It seems to me that and I may be wrong about this. I'd like to get your reaction. It seems to me that for many of the Europeans, the idea of the unconscious, the irrational, those visionary states, emotions, desires that were really outside the boundaries of society or conventional discourse, were in some ways had some parallels in the idea in ancient so-called primal cultures or primitive art, where a sense of ritual, magic, the sacred, a connection with the world on a very, Jung would say, on a very archetypal level, on a very, very fundamental level that unites people across time and across culture, that there is somehow some sort of parallel there. Clearly a lot of the Europeans, as you said earlier, Picasso being the most famous, but certainly one of many important artists, Paul Klee is a personal favorite of mine, were inspired by cultures, ancient cultures outside their own. And I would imagine that they were intuitively feeling some sort of connection between modern day explorations of the unconscious and the power of the dream state, and these expressions of the unconscious or states of deep mystery that were not alien to cultures that go back thousands of years in the Americas. Do you see a relationship there, or am I drawing a connection that doesn't really exist?
I agree completely with you. I think that was the main thing. I mean, that we felt that the art was not in relation with what we feel inside, as sacred, as violently irrational. No? And no, I don't think that European art was in those days searching for that. And that is why there was a great void that violently the New York School filled because the Klein or the Kunik or Rothko, Pollock were expressing the same thing, no? The same thing.
But hasn't there been a sort of we would say in English a double standard where I don't have any problem with appropriation. I mean, I think that as an artist you should be free to take from wherever you can, and like Rilke say, you make it part of you, and it becomes, if you're strong enough as an artist, it becomes your own work. But it seems to me that there still exists, and this is something that's been around for a long time, it seems to me that there's been this quality where Europeans or North Americans can borrow liberally from cultures and traditions outside their own, be inspired by those traditions. One thinks of Henry Moore and the chalk mule figure, or you mentioned earlier Picasso's appropriation of various formal devices from African art. In the United States, we have a number of artists that I admire greatly, and living artists like there's the sculptor Martin Poirier, the painter Susan Rothenberg, or Lee Bontekoe. All of them are profoundly influenced by cultures outside their own, with roots in pre-Hispanic or pre-Hispanic cultures. Oceanic.
Yes.
Yet when a Latin American person or a person from who isn't from North America or Europe wants to absorb the most sophisticated aspects of European culture, they tend to be somehow seen as being derivative or not given the same freedom that the North American or European appropriators have. And this seems to be really is that your are you aware of this bias, that people come in with a predisposition that they have an understanding of what Latin American is? For instance, they conflate pre-Columbian art, pre-Hispanic cultures with folk art.
Yes.
I mean, they start with the fundamentals of really disrespecting the brilliance of architectural achievements like Machu Picchu, or the abstraction of the Maya.
It has been having a misunderstanding there, no? I was very furious with the Museum of Modern Art when they made a beautiful show called Modern Art and Primitivism.
Yeah, I saw that show.
In which the curator decided that they didn't talk about Latin American pre-Hispanic because it was the art of imperial art, the art of imperials, and what influenced the Europeans was the tribal art, and it only showed his ignorance, because Latin American art is all tribal.
Yes.
I mean, in Peru, Inca art doesn't exist, only in architecture. The art of Chavín or the art of Mochica or Moche or Vicus or Paracas, it's all tribal.
And of course, all the magnificent West Coast Mexican work,
Tribal.
Oh, you look at the Colima figures, and it's a
Colima,
water carrier, and the animal life. It doesn't feel very hierarchical to me.
Yeah.
But they didn't even include in that show, they didn't even include, with the exception of Martin Lam, who of course had been working as part of the Surrealist group in the late 30s and early 40s in Europe, which made it very convenient to include them. They didn't include any other Latin American artists in the show, which is just incredible when you think about it. And it seems to me that there is still this reluctance. I don't know why exactly it is, but going forward, what would you say is do you think that do you think that the time will come when people will be able to look at the way in which great Latin American artists of your generation, I would put you among those artists along with Tamayo. It's a very small group, Torres Garcia, Toledo, there's a handful of artists that really represent the high point of Latin American culture in terms of its integration of modernism and ancestral culture. Do you think that there will come a point where people will start to realize in Latin America that they don't have to get invited to the party by copying the Europeans, but that they can do work which is very much in the spirit of their own cultural roots and the deep understanding of what's most profound in those roots, along with what's most profound in the history of modernism?
I think that things are changing. What you are describing is exactly the truth, but things are changing. When you have Borges or Garcia Marquez or Vargas Llosa in literature, who cannot be looked at as minor figures, they have influenced everybody because they are very strong personalities. So they will change. I think we should not worry about that. It will, with time, it will take his place. I remember not long ago, not 20 years ago, an American director of a museum in New York who was suggested to make a lamp retrospective.
A Wilfredo Long retrospective.
Yes. He said, "Oh no, that is for the inter-American community, not for a museum." But that time will change. We shouldn't worry.
Well, Fernando, I'd like to, I could literally talk to you for hours, and I hope that we'll have an opportunity to continue the conversation.
We will have the time to speak a lot about this, because it's a theme with a lot of things around. Very interesting. And it will be more and more interesting with time.
Well, Fernando, thank you so much for the conversation. Thank you for your art and inspiration. If you have an opportunity to see Fernando de Szyszlo's work here at the gallery, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. He's one of the world's great living painters. And if not at our gallery, I hope that you'll have a chance to see him in one of the many museums around the world that you can find his work. Thank you very much.